Secrets, if you really look at yourself, you would be speechless. What happened to being doctors and teachers? What happened to being your brother's keeper? Nowadays, kids more worried about
music. Hey yo, I'd probably be the same if it wasn't for the pain. Hustle hard trying to make it in this game full of change. Remember back in 07, niggas picture me as lame. Now back in 2011, one of the hardest in the game. I'd probably be the same if it wasn't for this music. And have a hell of talent, pray to God I never lose it. Spit a couple lines, leave these whack rappers clueless. A trendsetter, flipping scripts like a bad movie. I'd probably be the same if it wasn't for my fam. One of the main features that define who I am, especially my mom's. I love her with a passion, cause life without her is pretty tragic. Even though my pops mean as hell, at least he is a good father who worked his ass off and did without so we could prosper still. One of the same, cause I'm first and last name. Leaving the home, I'll never be the same.
Yo, what is poppin'? Before the video starts, I just want to let you all know that I give readings, just like the ones that you see every Monday on my channel. I give on point Orisha Tarot card readings for singles and also for couples. I also do natal chart consultations. My Everything is Everything reading is by far my bestseller. If you want to check out any of these services, please visit my website at www.bandclaptv.com. And also, when you go to that website and you scroll down, you will see a link to go to my shadow work class. In this time that we're in right now, shadow work is very, very important. Getting to know yourself, your inner child, really knowing who you are. All of these things are extremely important, and I have a very, very informative self-paced course. Shout out to Spiritual Ascension University and Melanie the Spirit Doula for allowing me to be able to give you all this very, very priceless course, if I do say so myself. So again, if you want to check these things out, go to my website, www.bandclaptv.com. All right, on with the video. Ricky Freeman Sr. was born on June the 4th, 1959. So the first thing that really stuck out to me when looking at me and my dad's natal chart side by side is the fact that we had extremely similar upbringings. Just like how with my upbringing, I was raised up by a super alpha divine masculine father and a extremely feminine mother. That's the same exact way that my dad grew up in his household, because my granddad, James Thomas Freeman, was the same exact way. And my grandmother, she was in a lot of ways like my mom. Extremely feminine, very loving, very soft-spoken, very nice, stuff like that. But one thing that my uncles and my dad and all of that would say about my granddad was that he did not play. I heard so many stories about how ruthless and how strict my granddad was around the house when he was alive. And it always hurt me that my granddad, he passed away when I was 3 years old. And I pretty much forgot what he looked like. I don't remember anything about him really. The only thing that I remembered was that he smoked cigars. And when I would come to my grandmother's house, when my dad would drop me off so he can go to work, I used to go in the bathroom and I would always see a cigar butt on the bathroom sink. And that was kind of ingrained in my head from back then. So my grandmother, she's a Pisces. And since my mom is a Scorpio and she has that Virgo moon, she was able to point out some things that my grandmother was doing that she didn't really like, and they would get into arguments and stuff like that. But it would be things that nobody else would really catch on to but my mom. But again, that's that Eshu energy and that Oya energy working together. Now, my grandmother had 9 children. She had 8 boys and 1 girl, and they were all raised Christian as well. Now, just like me, my dad, he was a rebel as well. He never felt at home in one place as well. And my dad would always tell me those stories about how he would be out in the street doing things and how it was God that kept him out of jail and kept him from meeting an early demise and stuff like that. So again, this shows in my life how a father, and a father that was very, very strict like Obatala, a father that was a very, very astute messenger, like Legba, was very, very important when it came to my foundation of being a man. Because we know that the great Sagittarian philosopher is Obatala, which means that having a Sagittarius in the 4th house means that your house was pretty much fully dominated by not only religion, but fully dominated by the father that was in the home. And with me being raised up around a whole bunch of older men, being around my uncles and stuff like that, they were all influential in creating my foundation for being a masculine man, because all of my uncles in their own way went out to live honest lives. Some of my uncles joined the military, like my Uncle Eric. Some of my uncles became truck drivers, like my Uncle Gregory. And some of my uncles just lived normal, honest lives, raised good, upstanding children and families and stuff like that. And my dad was one of those people. Now, with me being born immature, my foundation was already unstable as a person. I had to have very, very extra type of care because my body was extremely brittle and easy to break bones and stuff like that. There was a lot of things in my body that took a lot longer to develop. So I had certain handicaps and certain issues with myself. So my dad, working in the grocery industry, was almost the perfect thing for me, because I remember my dad always bringing home bananas and V8 and all these different fruits and vegetables and stuff like that so my mom can cook. And these things help to build me up to be what you see in front of you today. Now, I had a reading with a lady, and we was talking about how I stopped really bashing Christianity like that when I found out that a lot of these religions, especially star seeds and crystal children and indigo children who were born from religious Christian parents and stuff like that, a lot of times it's good that you were born in that type of way, because that means that you came from a strict upbringing, and that strict upbringing in turn helped to preserve some of your innocence, which is something that you're going to need when you get older and you start having that curiosity that you want to start doing that shadow work and getting to know your inner child. So that strong foundation that I was raised up in, as you can see, was extremely pivotal for me being the man that I ended up growing up to be. Someone who also wants to build a strong foundation for my life as well. So I always wondered what and why did my dad change so much after he got saved, and he really started to embody Christianity the way he did, because it was like just like me, the way I was before I found this spirituality. I made a total 360 from the person that I used to be. And this was one of the things that I always admired about my dad. But at the same time, even though I couldn't truly understand, but I knew deep down that I wasn't going to take the same spiritual path that my dad did. Now, even when talking about this, starting out, me and my dad have something in common with this, because when you look at our 9th house, both of our 9th house is in Taurus. And when you read about this placement, it talks about the purpose of a person's life is always found somewhere in the material world. Experience needs to be built in the real world through financial and physical matters. And this is the exact reason why these individuals turn to education in fields of finance, agriculture, cooking, or real estate. For as long as they don't lack initiative and primal energy, they can truly be fantastic in practical matters, but also tend to close up for new experiences if they get hurt or disappointed. Now, this is a tricky position, for as much as the beneficent sign of Taurus can be mellow, it can also be lazy, static, or stiff to accept change and the beauty of constant movement. There is a special joy these people find in tradition, and they will strive to reach family values and practical pleasures as much as they can in this lifetime. So pretty much in a lot of ways what this is saying is, in my dad's case, he feels the most valuable. He feels the highest self-esteem. He feels the highest self-worth when he's in a traditional family environment where he's able to fully protect and provide for his family, and also to be part of a religion that is extremely stable, a religion that is stiff and it doesn't really leave any room for change or anything like that. Because in Christianity, in that religion, you're kind of locked in. All other religions and spiritual systems are frowned upon. it's either Jesus or nothing. And when you look at my dad's moon sign, which is also in Taurus, which is also in the same house, it was pivotal for my dad to be the way he is, because this is where my dad got to know his inner child at. So with me looking at this and also taking this into account too, because we know that Taurus is supposed to be in the second house. So with my dad having a Libra in the second house, this means that one of the main things that makes my dad feel whole is being able to not only have a loving and sustaining relationship, but to also have a loving and sustaining family. And these are the things that keep my dad balanced. Now, on the surface, you would think that I should have these same type of values as well. But see, this is where we have to pay attention to the degrees in astrology, because degrees in astrology is extremely important when you want to learn about what aspects of your natal chart represents different lessons and different things that you came here to learn about so you can grow. And also different aspects that you've already kind of been there, done that. And in this life, you're meant to transform and you're meant to upgrade and go a different route. Now, in my dad's case, when you look at his second house in Libra placement, you can see that it's 11 degrees. So the closer that you are to 0 degrees, this means that this is something that you literally came here to learn. So that means that in this lifetime, you're going to be put through a slew of situations to teach you about this particular aspect. So looking at my dad's placement, where his 9th house in Taurus is 11 degrees, and also his second house in Libra is 11 degrees. This means that this is literally what he came down here to learn about. Now, look at my placement of Taurus in the 9th house, and look at my placement of Libra in the second house. As you can see, I'm closer to the 29 degree mark. And in the degrees, the closer that you are to 29 degrees, this means that this is something that you've been there, done that in many other lifetimes, and you came here to learn a different way and to upgrade and evolve from that particular placement. So in my case, a lot of things had to happen in my life to show me a more enlightened and a more evolved version of those same aspects. So instead of me paying attention to my dad's 9th house in Taurus, instead, I paid more attention to my dad's inner child, which is his moon sign in Taurus, which is 24 degrees in the 9th house. And even though when it came to my dad being a Bible thumping Christian because of this, on the flip side, this taught me an extremely valuable thing when it comes to the things of the second house. Because like I always said, the only time that I would see my dad really dress up was an event like a graduation back in the day when we would go to church, and a funeral. But most other times, my dad would be dressed up in regular clothes that you would get from Walmart. Sometimes he'll have on like 3 or 4 pair of pants under his main pair of pants. He'll have on like 5 or 6 pairs of socks. He always wore hats and stuff like that. You know, that's where I get that from, always wearing hats. Even when I was in school, I used to wear like my boxers. I have on like a huge pair of basketball shorts, and then I would have on my school pants. So another thing about my dad is that he never really cared about brands like that. He just cared about what is the most durable thing that I can wear that's going to get the job done, you know? And what does that sound like? That sounds like the Pataki of Oshun, when she was thinking about what kind of bird can I turn into that's going to get the job done so I can go up there to heaven and stop this flood before the whole world gets covered in water and everybody drowns. She wasn't thinking about what is the prettiest bird or what is the most graceful bird. All she cared about is what is the bird that's going to get the job done. And it just turned out it was that ugly buzzard. But she didn't care. She didn't care about getting her dress dirty, turning it from white to yellow. And as you see, now when we think about Oshun, we think about the color yellow. So she even turned her ugliness into a thing of beauty. And this is something that I always admired about my dad. My dad would be walking around with his rag in his back pocket, hat to the side, 2 or 3 shirts on with a long sleeve shirt, 2 or 3 pairs of pants with some steel toe looking boots that he been working in for I don't know how long. And I would just be riding around with my dad, and I would just see the type of respect that he would get from men and from women. Even the people walking down the sidewalk that would pass by the gate would smile. Hey, what's up, Rick? What's up, man? How you doing, man? Oh, you know, lean independent on Jesus Christ. You know, taking things one day at a time, you know. And that's something that really, really stuck with me. And that's why even to this day, I never really cared to be flashy. I never really cared about being superficial and all of those type of things, because I would think about how my dad would get so much respect just by him just being him and just being a stand-up guy in general. And being raised up like that, that's a reason why I never really fit in to today's standards of fashion and all of that type of stuff, because I've never been that type of person that felt like I needed to wear something special or I needed to have a certain brand or all that type of stuff to be unique. With me growing up in a lower middle class type of environment, my dad couldn't even afford to really buy me anything outside of Walmart or Marshalls or anything like that. So while everybody else got on Jordans and stuff like that, I was rocking the Shaqs, or I was rocking the Ivos, or I was the only kid in school with the 50 cent G-Unit shoes that had the spinners on the side. And even though you would have those people that would flock to the dudes with the J's, when you would hear me coming, walking down the hallway or walking in the classroom, and you would see my spinner spin on my shoes, it's just like Beyonce say, world stop. The dudes be like, hey Rick, hey come here man, hey make your spinner spin, See, I can laugh about it now, but man, it was crazy. So once I got older and I bought my first pair of J's and I got my job and I was finally able to buy those Ed Hardy clothes, and I was able to buy the big name brands and stuff like that, that phase didn't really last long with me, because I didn't truly see the value in those brands of clothes. The only thing I was thinking, I was like, man, this shit is just too expensive. I can go over here to this store, or I can go over here and get the same type of clothes that's a lot cheaper. And plus, I always liked baggy clothes. I don't like the new type of jeans that they got out now that's real tight, that's hugging your butt and all of that. I've always liked to have those baggy clothes that I can breathe in, you know, just like what Biggie said, red boxes so my dick can breathe. So getting back to this stability and things like that, because we know that the roots when it comes to this is in the fourth house. And even when we look at me and my dad's fourth house placements in Sagittarius, I'm 28 degrees in Sagittarius, which means that I had an even bigger hunger to lead a house. I had an even bigger hunger and an even bigger need for freedom and for independence and stuff like that. And that's the reason why I always said, even though I didn't have a bad childhood, I never liked being a child, because I always felt constricted. And yeah, even though I go through a lot in my adult life, I don't really regret a lot of things, because at least I can say that I feel free, something that I was always yearning for since I was a child. And since my dad, his fourth house in Sagittarius is 13 degrees, he had a strong need to get out the house, but it wasn't as strong as mine, because let's face it, my granddad was way more strict and way more feared than my dad, even though he's literally a splitting image of my granddad. But what this means is I've always had a bigger capacity to take risks, a bigger capacity than my dad had, which, you know, he's a lot more on the safer side, because the different mistakes and things that he went through in his life, it humbled him to a point where he don't really like to take those type of risks like the way I would take, because I'm the type of person where I will go through something, I will bump my head and stuff like that, but I would take a minute to analyze what I did wrong, and then I will go back and do it again. And this time, since I learned from my mistakes, I will come out victorious. And this is how I was able to get away with certain things at home, at least with my dad. Now, even when still talking about foundation, because even though I'm saying 5 things, like I said, this all contributes to my foundation of me being a divine masculine man. So the 3 other points that I want to explain that my dad taught me was respect, honesty, and integrity. Respect, honesty, and integrity. And these are all things that not only plays into my dad's upbringing in the way that he was brought up, but again, this is also something that I saw within my dad in his own life, and how all of these 3 things would give him such positive reinforcement. You know, because these 3 things are something that when we look at the world today, there's not a lot of stimulants. There's not a lot of things in the music media manipulation that's going to stimulate and give you positive motivation and reinforcement as a man to be respectable, to be honest, and to have integrity. So these were the 3 things that my dad truly showed in his actions. One thing that my dad used to always tell me is that if you're ever going through something and you need to talk to me, never hesitate to pull me to the side and talk to me. And then when I got older, that would change to, if there's anything on your mind that you feel like that I did, if you think that I wronged you in any type of way, or if you think that I disrespected you in any type of way or something like that, don't be afraid to tell me those things as well. So with that being said, me and my dad always had a open line of communication, no matter what type of issues that we would have. Now, honesty, this is a Gemini trait. This is something that as Geminis, we pride ourselves in being very honest communicators. And one thing that is an unforgivable sin when it comes to dealing with a Gemini is when you lie to them. We truly, truly don't like being lied to, because from an early age, we learn how to accept all different forms of criticism. So growing up, this was something that I had to learn. And this is something that I got a lot of whoopings about. This is something that I got chastised about a lot because, like I said, I'm only a 1-degree Gemini. And since my dad is a 13-degree Gemini, he knows more about this subject. And this is something that I had to learn in his lifetime, because we know that when we talk about Cancer, which is my South Node, a lot of Cancers, they don't really like engaging in conflict like that. So instead, they would go in their shell. And if they need to lie in order to keep the peace, that's what they would do. So since a lot of my inner child energy was asleep while I was at home, especially as a child and being raised up, a lot of things that I went through that I'm learning that I would get in trouble over and stuff like that, it dealt with reminding me about my past life Cancer karma. Because in this life, I'm supposed to be about truth. And you can't be about truth if you're known as a liar. So why was my dad so gung-ho and so big on honesty, respect, and integrity? So to kind of get a glimpse about why, we have to look at the 11th house, because we know that the 11th house is about friendship, protection, the search for social acceptance and security, collective and humanitarian actions. And we know that in this sphere, this would be one of the biggest houses, one of the biggest instances that you would lie, especially if you already feel like an outcast and you already feel like that you're not socially acceptable by you just being you. Now, I don't have a house that's in Cancer, even though I got some planets that's in Cancer. Now, my dad, on the other hand, his 11th house is in Cancer. So this kind of gives you a glimpse of why honesty is so important in his life. So when we look at this 11th house in Cancer, this talks about everyone in this person's family will feel like friends. This is a strange position, as the 11th house should be there to free us from our emotional ties. But it's not the case here. These individuals have strong feelings for those they socialize with. They have heightened senses around other people and treat others with empathy. However rational they might seem to be, there is something warm in their approach. The desire of the 11th house in Cancer is in emotional awareness, acceptance, and peace. In order to find it, they will have to embrace their emotional depths, however flawed they might seem. The truth is, they deserve a calm, serene place in their hearts and minds, but their genetic inheritance stands in the way too often. If they haven't been told they are beautiful, smart, and special often enough when they are children, they should make a self-affirmation a regular part of their daily routine. Now, that was a mouthful, but it explains a whole lot. And this also explains why my dad is so into religion and Christianity, because that provides that peace and that positive reinforcement. This also explains my dad's very, very close relationship to my grandmother. Not only because, just like me, his 7th house is also in Pisces. And I know that my grandmother used to always speak that positive and motivating reinforcement in his life. And this also explains why my dad loved my mom so much, because my mom provided that positive and motivating reinforcement around the house all the time. Whether it was her singing to my dad, massaging him, rubbing his back, whether it was her seeing that he's sick or seeing that he's tired, so she cooks his favorite meal, or whether it's just her being that appreciative and always happy baby girl around the house. Every time she feels like my dad might be sad or he might be going through some mental things that he don't want to say out loud. And these are all things that kept his spirits up and kept that side of him up that would never go into a dark place where you feel like that you got to be disrespectful, where you feel like that your integrity is being taken for granted. So you start being grimy, where you feel like that your kindness is being taken for weakness. So you stop being honest. You start being conniving and low down and all of those low vibrational type of things when you don't have this positive and motivating reinforcement around you. So since my dad always had that type of mindset to where you don't know who you're going to need one day, you don't know who you're going to have to ask for help one day. So it's very pivotal for you to be honest, be respectful, and have integrity to everybody that you're around, everybody that you meet, everybody that you come across, because these are the things that's going to last in their mind. And thinking about this, even my mom, in her own way, used to tell me the same exact thing. She would always say, you better watch out who you're entertaining, because you might be entertaining an angel. Now, with me, this was a extremely pivotal thing that I had to learn, a very extremely hard thing that I had to be taught in my life, because with me having a 1 degree Leo in my 11th house, if I was raised by a single mother or if I was raised by a beta male simp for a dad, this is something that literally could make or break me as a person. Because see, on the flip side, when you look at the 11th house in Leo, the image of friendships easily becomes more important than the actual friend. On one hand, this is obviously a very important issue in the person's life. And on the other hand, they tend to socialize only with people who make them look good. Self-recognition comes through other people, and it can be difficult to steer clear of control and people who impose their will and show disrespect. The key is to creating healthy relationships with this position is to put everyone's individuality into focus. This doesn't mean that you should neglect your own inner being, but rather that each relationship formed should have a deep personal understanding and respect. Once they realize how each of their friends or siblings is special, without becoming envious or strangely tied to them, as they should become someone else, they will start to surround themselves with honest people with warm hearts. Desired respect can be hard to reach if they don't have enough respect for themselves. So again, this is the reason why me being on this particular spiritual path was extremely important for me, because with me having Jupiter in Leo, and we know that Jupiter is the planet of expansion, broadness, and generosity, this placement gives me a strong inclination for luxury, arts, parties, and shows. My nature is fond of leisure, preferably noble, proud, and dramatic ways, feeling comfortable in the field of entertainment. So if I wasn't on this spiritual path like I'm on, and y'all know I love going to the club, I always liked parties, I always knew that I was going to have some type of career in the entertainment industry, all things that my dad was against. And one thing my dad used to always tell me, that everybody who's smiling in your face ain't your friend. I understand now that the reason why my dad was seemingly trying to protect me from this 11th house type of demise is because if I wasn't on this spiritual path and I never learned about respecting myself and how important that really is, I would be one of these type of people acting like something that I'm not just to fit in, just so I can have certain type of people that want to associate with me because of the fake luxurious type of lifestyle that I'm promoting. And this is something that would have truly hurt me in the long run, because with me being a 1 degree Gemini, which is already on the low side, someone who is immature, someone who is childish and stuff like that, and also with me having that 29 degree Virgo, which exudes innocence, the real killers and the real hustlers would know that I'm being something that I'm not, and they would set me up and put me in situations where I would be the one taking the fall. And it wasn't even my fault. It was the people that I associated with that betrayed me, because I'm disrespecting and betraying my own self. And being in school, this was a huge lesson that I had to learn, because I got in trouble a lot. And a lot of the times that I got in trouble, it wasn't even really me that was doing the bad stuff. It was the people that I was associating with just so I can fit in that would be doing these things. And then when the teacher would be like, who did it? They'll be like, Ricky did it. Ricky did it, you know? And since everybody feared my dad, so they wouldn't fight me up close and personal. Instead, they would use my dad as the bully. They would do things to get me in trouble because they knew that the teacher was gonna call my dad, and my dad was gonna come up there and cause a scene, and everybody be laughing. So this is why me getting to know my inner child was extremely important. Now, me being on Mercury, this is the reason why I chose my dad, so he can activate certain fail-safes that I gave myself before I even came to Earth, because I knew that this was something that was going to be an issue for me. So out of all of those whoopings and all of those write-ups and all of that chastisement from school, this reactivated a fail-safe that would end up being the reason why not only was I such a rebel, but also the reason why I am the way I am today, being original, being me, and not really caring what other people have to say about me being me. So to examine this failsafe, we have to look at Uranus, because Uranus, this represents individual freedom, originality, independence, marginality. And this is something that is extremely important when we're talking about being respectable, being honest, and having integrity. Because when you're being original and you're just being who you are, and you're unapologetic, and you're successful, and you're able to have that prestige, just you being yourself, that garners all of those three things in one. So again, this is something that I learned from the home. This is the reason why for me, Uranus is in my 4th house. Now, all of that whooping and all of that chastisement from those 11th house issues, this is what activated my Uranus in Capricorn, you know, all of them ass whoopings, you know. So it got to the point where in the 6th grade, and I talked about this, in the 6th grade, I got set up by these two girls. We was going back and forth doing this rap battle, and she did her little verse and she sent it to me, and then I did my little verse, and I was like, eat my nuts. Now that seems super innocent, you know. I wasn't like, suck my dick. I ain't know anything about that in the 6th grade. Shoot, in the 6th grade, that was the first time that I seen titties before, because one day we was having movie day in the classroom, and my teacher went to sleep, and one of my classmates put in How to Be a Player. And you remember that beginning scene where they was having sex and her titties was out? Yeah, that was my first time seeing titties. So when I was saying eat my nuts in that rap battle, I really didn't mean anything vulgar by it. You know, it just rhymed with what I said. But since I was trying to fit in and I was trying to get with those girls that really wasn't even my type, I really had no business messing with those type of girls. But again, 11th house in Leo, these girls, even though they didn't know who they were, they represented the Oshun energy. They were beautiful girls. And when you're a child, you don't have the same type of fail-safes that you would have when you're talking about messing with these wayward Oshuns than when you're an adult. And it's better that you get this type of lesson as a child than you getting this type of lesson as an adult. When you done got with one of these wayward Oshuns and you done got them pregnant, and then you got kids and you got to pay child support. Woof, man, I'm so glad I learned this lesson in the 6th grade. So long story short, the teacher ended up asking us what were we doing, because it got to the point where everybody in her group was laughing at my rhyme because I pretty much beat her, and it was starting to disrupt the class. And this is where these two girls stuck together and they erased what they said in their rap and they just kept my version. So now they're able to flip the narrative like I was writing her a dirty letter or writing her a dirty note or something like that. And if it wasn't for my dad being so cool with the principal and being so cool with the teacher and stuff like that, I was literally about to get suspended for sexual harassment, which is a really, really big thing to get suspended about in school. Now, since I had a track record at that time of being rolled up for talking out of turn and being in trouble, I tried my best to tell my dad the truth, to let him know that he got it all wrong. It was all a mix-up. I was set up, but my dad didn't listen. My family didn't listen. They all kind of painted me out to be this sexual deviant, this bad seed, this bad kid. And this was one of the first times that I really stood up to my dad, because in my mind and in my heart of hearts, I was pissed off because why am I getting punished when I was set up? Why am I getting punished because I didn't do nothing wrong? So I remember while my dad was whooping me, I yelled out real loud, the same type of yell that my dad did on Mercury. And from that point on, that was the last time that I ever cried while getting a whooping, because after I yelled out like that, I put my hand out, I scrunched my face up, and I took them licks like a man without crying. And this is what activated my Uranus in Capricorn. So Uranus in Capricorn increases your detachment from emotions and feelings. Paradoxical coldness blended with exceptional results may give a hectic career and propel you to a very high level positions. Now, even though this was a very turning moment, a very messed up moment for me, this is the reason why in my life now, I can be very emotionally cold when it comes to certain situations. Yeah, that 6th grade situation is what ignited my I don't give a fuck type of attitude. Because if I know I didn't do nothing wrong and I know I'm innocent, I'm gonna stand on that, and I don't care what the consequences is, because I know deep down inside that I didn't do nothing wrong. Now, on the spiritual side, with me having all this anger, all this pent up anger on the inside, and with my third house being in Scorpio, I never lost my ability to do spiritual warfare to women, because even in this life, I don't hit women. I try to stay away from physically harming women or people that do me wrong, because even at an early age, I always knew that spiritual warfare is always the most lasting and the most effective way to deal with anything in any situation. And this is something that my Uncle Thomas used to drill in me every time I would do something wrong, and he would have to give me those long talks and stuff. He would always tell me, he would be like, you know, one day you're gonna get so old that your dad gonna whoop you and it's not gonna hurt like it used to. You're not gonna be crying like you used to when your dad whoop you. But you go out there as an adult and you're doing what you ain't supposed to do, and God have to whoop you, that's something that's gonna last a whole lot longer. And it's gonna be a lot more painful when God has to whoop you. So even as a child, I learned a valuable lesson about when you're honest and you're truthful and you got that integrity, and you know in your heart of hearts that you didn't do nothing wrong, and you get in trouble, you don't have to worry about the people in the physical world believing you and stuff like that. Because when you're the chosen one and you're SU, a lot of your power is gonna be with spiritual warfare. So I got on my knees and prayed. I was crying, I was sad, I was grounded. There was a lot of things that I was supposed to be getting from my mom that she was gonna buy me for my game, and all of those things got decimated because of that lie. So long story short, I went to school the next day, which was Monday, and she was absent from class. She was absent from class for a few days. And then the next time I seen her again, she was on crutches and in pain because something happened to her during that weekend where she broke her leg real bad. So I learned at an early age that karma comes swift to anybody who messes with the baby SU, and he gets into a situation where he gets in trouble for something that he was innocent and he didn't do nothing wrong, and he got set up. And this slowly started to give me a inner pride for a side of myself that I didn't even truly get to know yet. And when I seen her in all that pain, walking with those crutches, hardly able to sit down, hardly able to move around and all of that, I looked at that as a payback for the pain that I went through, and I could no longer be mad at her anymore. Now, what I ended up inheriting from my dad was his Uranus, which was in Leo, that is in the 11th house. Now, Uranus in Leo endows you with a lot of self-confidence and pride. You are happy to be different. At the same time, this stimulates your creativity and may bring about sudden glory. And this is something that I always admired about my dad. But this is something that is going to be an ongoing learning lesson for me until I found out how powerful my inner child, aka the baby SU, really was. Now, this is also what started a bit of a disconnect between me and my dad. That feeling that he'll never truly understand the real me. He'll never truly understand what I came here to do. Because yes, I wanted to learn how to use my voice as that weapon and all of those type of things that I said in my last video. But that is only an aspect, something that I needed to do my bigger goal, to do my bigger path, the path of the magician, the life path 11. And this is the one thing that I truly struggled with being at home. Because as you can see, with Uranus in the 4th house, this talks about your comportments towards your close friends are unpredictable. You know, that situation and other situations that I went through in my childhood really started to develop me with trust issues and me having to learn ways to read people and observe people so I can truly be able to see what people's intentions are so that I won't be hurt and I won't get burned like I have in the past. And this is something that my mom contributed to a whole lot on a spiritual level and on a emotional level, on a intuitive level. And my dad, he taught me this on a physical level. And me growing up, I had to learn how to balance out these two things, because my dad, with his Taurus moon, being very stuck in his ways, being very rigid, not acceptable to change when it came to certain things. My mom would get certain movies and she'll want to watch them with my dad, and my dad will be like, cut that mess off. Why are you watching that? Why are you watching that nasty stuff? Or why are you watching that filthy stuff? You know, and it'll be like a horror movie or a Tyler Perry movie or something like that. And with my mom being a Scorpio, she's always going to be attracted to movies that deals with transformation, that deals with death, that deals with the dark and the unknown and all of these type of things. So she's able to look at these movies and find the jewels in them, you know, something that I do in my life as well. So as an adult, I used to have that same mindset as my dad, where I would look at how somebody is living, or I would look at somebody from an outside surface level type of way. And if they dress a certain way, if they carry themselves a certain way or something like that, I wouldn't even want to deal with them, which, me saying it out loud, sounds very, very superficial, just like a tourist. But the more intuitive I got, and the more I started to lean more to the way my mom taught me about looking at things, this is where I would find a lot of diamonds in the rough. I would get a lot of game from some of the most unsuspecting people that you would think of. And sometimes my true friends would end up being in this group of people. But this also led to me getting burned a lot. It also led to me getting into crazy, messed up situations and stuff like that. But this is an ongoing thing that I have to learn how to balance this, because when I do my readings and stuff like that, I talk to people from all walks of life who've had all sorts of crazy situations happen to them. And I have to be balanced. I have to stay in the middle. I can't judge nor condemn these people just because of their disposition. Because when you look at my dad's Uranus in the 11th house, this talks about someone who is interested in projects of society, but the individual has the first place. You need to protect everyone's freedom and build a fraternal world. Your conceptions are liberal, often original and personal. You never compromise over certain principles. Your friendships are straightforward, devoid of hidden agenda or ambiguity. You link up with other people because you want to share an ideal and assert the values you have in common. With these objectives, you cannot develop a genuine relationship. So with that, I can see why, when it comes to certain things, he's very uncompromising and stuck in his ways about, because if I've been through a lot of life lessons and a lot of personal things where I had to learn the hard way about this, I'm pretty sure that my dad went through these same exact crazy situations. And if you get out of a situation making it by the skin of your teeth, you're going to be very reluctant to throw yourself in a similar situation again. So observing this with my dad, this developed the principle in me to where it only takes one time for me to go through something crazy, and I'll never go through that situation again, because I'm going to be analyzing it, reflecting over what I did wrong and all of that, because as a child, that's how I would get chastised. Now, my mom, she was a lot more lenient when it came to certain things, and she would kind of convince my dad not to be so hard on me when it came to certain things. When it came to certain things I would get in trouble about, and it was my first offense. It was my first time ever doing it. It was my first time ever getting in trouble for something like that. My mom would be like, I'm not going to ground you and punish you this time because you were ignorant. You didn't really know that what you was doing was something wrong. So my mom would give me a long and stern talking to and would be like, now, this was your warning. So the next time you do this, I'm not going to hold your dad back when he wants to punish you and whoop you and all of that stuff. And like I said, that's something that really stuck with me. Even though I learned the hard way, when it comes to certain things, you need to be able to use your discernment and use the wisdom from learning from other people's mistakes, not to even do certain things the first time. Because not every time you do something that's the first time, you're going to be let off with a warning. Even in the Bible, it says ignorance of the law is no excuse. And this is something that I learned the hard way going to college, going to MTSU. I remember listening to this successful entertainer that came to our school because he graduated from MTSU, and he was this white guy, and he was talking about how, yeah, you know, my first year, I truly didn't know what I wanted to do with my life at that point. So I was in college, I was playing around, partying, having a whole lot of sex, going to a whole bunch of functions and not really going to class, not really caring about school. And that first year was his wake-up call, and he was given a second chance to go to school and do things right this time. And that second chance is what ended up propelling him to the prestige and the success that he ended up getting in his life. Now, with my experience at MTSU, in my mind, listening to what he said, I was very motivated. You know, MTSU was my first time really being away from home, being away from those rules and that strict upbringing that I was raised up. But unlike that white guy, I didn't get a second chance. That one year I messed up and it was over for me. I couldn't get no financial aid or no loans or anything like that. So it was a wrap. I wouldn't get my second chance at college until 5 years later in 2016 when I enrolled in Full Sail. But since I didn't have a strong financial and housing foundation, it caused me to not even be able to finish Full Sail. So back to my Uranus in the 4th house, it talks about people cannot be locked in. Not that easy. Your decisions, often in transient, are final. Upset, preconceived ideas, as well as the tranquility of your private world. Clans cannot impose their habits on you. You are endowed with an exceptional faculty to detach yourself from strangleholds and constraints and rely on past knowledge in order to bring perfection or to sublimate your family cultural heritage. So again, this is where we start to kind of talk about those things about me that my dad would never really understand, but the things that he taught me about respect, integrity, and honesty are principles that I never forgot and principles that make me the person I am today. And on part 3, I want to talk some more about this. I want to talk some more about why me and my dad differed when it came to different things like our creative energy and why I'm a lot more free-spirited. I want to talk about Saturn, which is something that was truly dominant in both of our lives. How my dad's Saturn placement is what made him look so serious and look so feared. And in my disposition, I inherited that from my dad, even though my Virgo ascendant is a lot more stronger than his, and how my crooked smile played a huge part in that. And I also want to talk about my Saturn placement and how this is something that I had to struggle with my childhood. And last but not least, the last thing that my dad taught me, one of the most important things, and that is sacrifice. All these things and more will be expounded upon on the next episode of BandClap TV. What's up, y'all? I hope y'all enjoyed that video, and if you stayed to the end, I appreciate you. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, I want to redirect you to my Instagram page. I don't promote my Instagram page a lot, but as my subscriber count and things like that rise due to things like shadow banning and stuff like that, I'm hearing that a lot of people aren't getting my notifications when I go live on YouTube and stuff like that. So for all things BandClap TV, my Instagram page and my story are going to have all of the notifications and things like that when it comes to when I'm going live, when I'm going, when I'm releasing videos, when I'm releasing content. Also on my Instagram page, if you're curious about my reviews for my readings and stuff like that, as you can see on my Instagram, I have a lot of different testimonials and stuff like that. For those who don't know of me as an artist, I also have videos of me performing and stuff like that. I'll be putting out more stuff like that very, very soon. So I'm just trying to get as many people right now to go ahead and follow me on Instagram. That is BandClap TV. And also my Facebook and Snapchat, BandClap TV as well. All right, y'all. I appreciate y'all. And like I always say, no matter what, you got to stay shining.